Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of my Musical Moments series. For the first time ever, a guest artist. We're so glad to have this opportunity to have my friend Dominic Cheli. Dominic has been a good friend for a couple of years now. First worked with us with the Adrian Symphony last year with the Tchaikovsky first piano concerto, and then keeping with the Tchaikovsky theme, just last week actually released a video with the Sequoia Symphony with the finale of Tchaikovsky's second piano concerto. So we're thrilled to have him with us. And today, 5 favorite things, 3 from him, 2 from me. He's the guest artist, so he gets more. And so with that, we will get started. So that's right, today we have our guest artist, Dominic Cheli. Say hello.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. Pleasure to record with Sequoia last week and release the Tchaikovsky finale of his second piano concerto. I'm so happy with how the video turned out. The orchestra sounded awesome, and again, always a pleasure to share the stage with you, Bruce.
Yeah, it was super fun, and there'll certainly be a link on one side of the screen and down below and at the end of the video as well. Don't go look at it now because you should watch this, but definitely check it out if you haven't already. It was fun to do that, and lots of Tchaikovsky. So as I said today, one of my most popular recurring themes that I do in the videos here is 5 favorite things. And so I thought, what better way to have a guest artist than to share 5 favorite things with you between the two of us, and stick around to the end as well because we'll be giving a little chat with Dominic. See, you know, what's it like? He's a full-time pianist. You know, this isn't like a moonlighting or a side gig, but an actual full-time pianist. So a couple of quick questions with him about how that works, especially during quarantine where you can't really give any concerts. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And what is your first favorite thing?
My first favorite thing is actually something that meant a lot to me in my childhood. That's music, but specifically jazz music. Growing up, my father was an amateur jazz saxophone player, so the first recordings I ever heard were really jazz, not classical. And I'll never forget listening to one of my favorite pianists of all time, Jarret, in his rendition of Over the Rainbow from a live concert. Absolutely beautiful. So that's one of my most favorite things to share with people. I think it just sums up the beauty of harmony, improvisation, freedom, spontaneity, and really musicality at one of its most fine forms. So I urge everyone the Tokyo live version of Over the Rainbow by Jarret. Jarret is just an inspiration to me because he's known for giving entire concerts purely on improvisation, where he'll take themes from Bill Evans, from pop culture, and create hour-and-a-half epics, I would say. And again, in this particular piece, Over the Rainbow, he takes what is really it's a pop culture type tune and creates something, for me, magical, and makes me hear the piece with a fresh set of ears with his harmony and melodic contours.
Wait, even when you watch his hands, he seems to be like finding his way through it.
Yes.
And you're like, does he really know? Like, you feel like, well, he knows he's heading somewhere, but there is this sense of like he's discovering chords as he goes and stuff, which is really magical.
Yes, and for me as a performer, I think that sense of like discovery and like finding things, even in a piece that I've studied for years and played a million times, that's something I'm always trying to grab and to inhabit when I'm performing. It's all about discovery, adventure, and just like the audience, you guys are hearing the piece for the first time. I want to almost be feeling like I'm learning it for the first time or hearing it for the first time, because that sense of freshness is just so appealing to me.
Yeah, it really captures that. And I should say, I don't know what these are. We haven't shared them with each other, so we're also discovering them together. So for my first one, this is actually one that Dominic does know because I sent it to him during the holiday season. This is Jeffrey Biegel playing that arrangement of Sleigh Ride that I sent you. And, it's funny, when I went back to find the link today, I just looked at our text messages. And what I said about it was, wow. And so I'll play a little bit of it for you right now, because it's sort of about 1 minute in is when he really just starts to go all over the piano, and it's so much fun.
I mean, so much fun.
Well, you know, as I said, the first minute of it, not terribly exciting. It's kind of the theme, and then it just kind of gets crazier and crazier as we go through it until you're just like, wow, he's all over the piano. So give us another one. What's your
Okay,
next one?
my next one is also from my childhood. In addition to growing up listening to a lot of jazz, my introduction actually to classical music was Glenn Gould's Goldberg Variations. So growing up, my father always had this CD on, the iconic recording from 1981. And basically, there's this really amazing video on YouTube of Glenn Gould in the studio. He's sort of, playing, performing, recording. He's talking a bit. You see the engineers working, behind the scenes. You kind of get to inhabit that experience of what it was like for this man to record. And for me, I just remember being just overwhelmed by, first of all, the piece itself. The Goldberg Variations always will be one of my most beloved repertoire pieces, and I would say that the way Glenn Gould plays it with his utter commitment and intensity and spirituality is something that really just captivated me. And at the time when I was young, I didn't understand everything about what this meant, but I knew it was something great, and it was something that I wanted to aspire to try to understand more about, which is kind of what sparked my whole adventure into music. I would say it's trying to kind of understand what the heck is going on here, because I know something amazing is happening. But yeah, I'd like to share this video, sort of behind the scenes, the first part of 4 of Glenn Gould and the Goldberg Variations.
So you're learning these now, is that right?
Well, actually, I would say I'm always, learning, working on them, but I did perform them for the first time back in 2017 while I was a student still at the Colburn School. These variations, this is a piece that, again, like I mentioned, I grew up listening to, not understanding, but really always dreaming about performing it in public at some point. I wasn't always sure whether I could, because this is such a monumental work for the piano, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. It's almost 50 minutes of pure Bach. Double that if you take all the repeats. And for me, it's truly a really cathartic experience, I think, to journey through these variations. And the beauty is that this theme, this aria that happens at the beginning, it happens at the end, and when you come full circle, and the aria that's written exactly the same at the end is completely transformed because of the journey that you've been on. And I always like to think about these variations in that same kind of spontaneous, free way that Keith Jarret might approach his music. Because in Bach he writes no markings, right? No dynamics, no types of hints at what to do with the notes. So it's our job as a performer, I would say, to really try to find new things and discoveries, and that's why I'm always fiddling with this piece and trying to see what path to take.
Yeah, and in these isn't like he was known for making 20 takes.
Yes, he was probably one of the first, I would say, recording artists. Glenn Gould's a fascinating man because he detested public performance, which many people will say, how can you be a musician and hate being in the public? But for Glenn Gould, it was all about being in the studio and creating like a craftsman, like an artist, exactly the digital sound world that he wants you to hear.
So I remember seeing a scene myself where he was doing, take after take after take, and then once, they're listening back, and he's like, there might be something there. Almost like you can't even, they all sounded amazing.
Yes.
But there was one that for some reason that resonated, and he was like, maybe there's a chance that one might work.
Yes, exactly.
And I remember being really struck by that too, years ago. And there are great stories about him collaborating with Bernstein.
Before this Brahms' first piano concerto performance, Bernstein actually said to the audience, as a disclaimer, I'm on stage performing this piece for you, conducting this piece in a minute with a soloist. And I don't necessarily agree with all the decisions we're making today, but I respect them. And I think as musicians, it's important for us to always be open and searching for new qualities. And then as a joke, he said, I've only ever disagreed with one other performer before, and that was also Glenn Gould. So
yeah, that's a very famous story. When
it is.
Declared well, we're going to do this, but I don't think we're doing it right. All right, so for my other one that I have, this is actually a well-known violinist, Leila Josefowicz, and someone shared this on Facebook not too long ago, and it's a performance of the Carmen Sarasate, Carmen Suite, and someone shared it, and the whole thing is like 15 minutes long, but in the last tune she does, and it's the really fast one, and you can see here, she starts the last tune in this medley. It's basically just a medley, a really exciting medley of some of the tunes from Carmen, and here at the very last one, what I love about it, in the camera shot, you can actually see the concertmaster too, and she starts this thing, and it has all these crazy double stops in it, and you can see the concertmaster like looks up at her like, wow, this is fast. And then she keeps going, and he looks up again like, wow, she's really doing it. And then a third time he looks up again, and there are like these 3 takes, and this is the reason I love it. She's amazing, of course, and a well-known performer. This is really, well, she was very young here. I think it's from like 1997 or something. But she's very young in this performance, so it's kind of old now, but just watch the concertmaster's face, and he's cool, but you just see him look up like, wow, it's fast. Oh my gosh, it's like almost like, how is she doing this? So I really love to watch it just for that, because I love sort of, reaction shots of musicians like, whoa. When something goes good or bad, but I think here it's worth seeing just for that. So it's only in the last couple of minutes of it, and I'll link to that for sure, so you can take a look at it. But the whole performance is amazing. And we wrap up now with one more from Dominic as our final swan song of our 5 things.
Well, and this swan song is a rather long one at that. Throughout my life, I've always loved the symphonic repertoire, and growing up in St. Louis Symphony, I loved going to the concerts, and apparently, I don't remember this, but my dad always said that when I went to the concerts, I would say things like, oh, I love that big long piece, because I felt like, that was like a movie or something, like I felt like I got my money's worth, with the big symphonic, Beethoven type symphonies. For me, one that just really resonates with me quite a bit is Bruckner's 8th Symphony. This is, just a mammoth, a mountain of a symphony, almost hour and a half, give or take, at least. I just think that this grandeur, this like the pathos, and just how much is happening in this piece is really inspiring. And also, for me at least, whenever I hear the finale begin, I always think about a movie. Actually, it sounds exactly like The Dark Knight. The brass, the voicing. I hear this and I say, you know what? I think Hans Zimmer was influenced by Bruckner.
Definitely.
Because take a listen to that 4th movement, when the low brass come in and the harmonization that they follow. You might think you're listening to a Hollywood movie right there. So I hope you enjoy the 8th Symphony.
Boy, you went for some long pieces today. Goldberg variations and Bruckner 8.
I like long pieces. I can't lie.
Yeah, that's not like you. Most children aren't like, I really like that really long one. That's impressive.
But
well, thank you so much for sharing these. This is really
pleasure.
fantastic. Now, people often, when we have Dominic live for concerts, people are always asking questions, etc. So I thought, well, we could close with some of those things. So what are the questions that you get asked the most? And I always say, how much do you practice?
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the top questions. How much do I practice? The other one is, how do you remember all of that? Yeah. It's one of those two that usually I get asked. And I can answer the practicing one pretty easily. That one, 46 hours a day, give or take. And most of the time, what I spend my time doing is visualization, both for the memory aspect of music making, because that's really important, but also visualization to try to actually imagine what you want to do with something. Because again, the piano is like raw clay. You can kind of craft it into whatever you want. And sometimes just being at the piano all the time, you limit yourself to what you're just hearing instead of trying to just use your imagination to hear things that you haven't heard yet from yourself. What matters more is building your imagination, your ears, how you listen to music. Always keeping them wide open and honest.
Does it get easier to memorize?
Yes and no. It's interesting. When you're a kid, sometimes you memorize things without even knowing it, which is dangerous, though, because
you mean without knowing you're memerizing?
Or yeah,
memorized it without knowing.
Well, it's kind of those things like it's like one day you wake up like, oh, I haven't memorized. It's like, do you? And from experience, I've had some occasions where, you know, I had one concert where I sat down, I must have been 12, sit down, I'm like, wait, what's the first note? You know, I didn't remember the first note, and somehow I got through it, because again, thanks to some of my early years of loving jazz, I was always decent at improvising and getting my way through things. I remember there was one competition I was growing up, I think I improvised an entire page of music in some Scrabble piece. I don't know, and you know, unfortunately, I don't think many people knew that I did. But the point though is that, you know, getting comfortable with mistakes and also getting comfortable with you know, moving past them is something really important, I think, for any musician.
Well, Dominic, thanks so much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
It was such a pleasure to have a guest artist, and the first one here, my friend, also at Angelino now. So we've been able to see each other a little bit during quarantine.
Yes.
But look forward to real concerts in person with both orchestras, with the Adrian Symphony and the Sequoia Symphony, with people in the hall as well. So very, very soon. So thanks very much. Also, when I give you a chance, like, you also have a YouTube channel.
Yes. If you look up my name, Dominic Cheli, you can find all kinds of different YouTube videos, solo, concerto, chamber music, and I'd love to hear from you. So always feel free to comment. You know, just let me know what you're thinking. It's the beauty of virtual content now. We can all be connected.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks very much. So check out our video. Every week you'll release one on Monday or occasionally Tuesday if things fall a little behind schedule. But thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye. Great.
Okay, so then the only thing we need is like a little thumbnail. So we just need to sort of, and I just like, well, I'll leave the camera running, but we need something so kind of lean in.
Oh, okay.
And just look at the camera, and then I'll just grab a screenshot.
Oh, okay.
But if I try to, I'm always like, you know, I try to choose fun ones.
Yeah.
And Larry's like, no.
Oh, he doesn't like. Well, you know, it's interesting.
He wants every fun to be like.
Oh, well, you know, it's interesting because like me and.